Welcome to 42 Silicon Valley and our Women Speaker Series here that we do also in partnership with Women Who Code and their meetup here in the Silicon Valley. So my name is Brittany Beer and I'm Chief Operating Officer here at 42 Silicon Valley, and we're very happy to have you here for our Women Speaker Series. Tonight we have Servan Demo, who is here from Code for Fun, who is going to tell us a little bit about the journey of her life. So we're going to talk a little bit about her professional experience, what drove her to come into the field of computer science and computer programming, and then we're going to delve a little bit into what then drove her to create her own business, to create a nonprofit that's been operating and benefiting locals here in the Bay Area for many years now. And so we are very happy to have her here tonight. So just a little information about why we decided to do this Women Speaker Series is that oftentimes we have this dialogue that there are very few women in the tech field. And while that's true, we also want to encourage more women to get out and to talk about their experience in the tech field, not just from the perspective of being a minority in the tech field, but more to talk about and empower other women to follow suit as well. So we're very happy to have Servan here tonight. So we're going to do this as a sort of fireside chat. I'm going to ask a few questions, and then at the end, we will also have a time for questions and answers. We also have this on live stream as well. So for those of you who are joining on live stream, welcome to you as well. And then for those of you who are here tonight, we also have some refreshments that our Cantina team with Chef Kat have been able to prepare for you as well tonight. So we'll be able to converse and get to know each other a little bit better once this evening is over. So
good evening, everybody, and thank you for inviting me. This is an honor, and thank you guys for coming, and for the people who are watching, thank you for the opportunity. Very glad to be here.
And we're very happy to have you. All right.
All right.
All right, so Servan, let's get to know you a little bit better. So what led you to come to the Bay Area? So you studied in France and you lived in France prior to this. What drove you to start learning about computer science?
So my parents were in the medical field, so I didn't have a lot of exposure growing up into technology and computer science. However, my brother, I have 3 older brothers, and my eldest brother joined an engineering school. And so it was the first one to actually get me exposed to this. I loved math and science, so for me it was kind of a logical choice. I was interested in engineering. I got to visit a school, and so once I joined a computer science engineering school, the first year, that's when, as a bachelor, that's when I was writing my first program, believe it or not. And I was fascinated with computer science. I really like the fact that you can decompose a problem into sub-problems and then teach the solution to a computer so you can automate the entire thing. And so I decided to choose that as my major. It was a great way to marry the mathematical skills that I had and the logical skills, and I really liked it.
Okay, so you found that through math, you decided to then pursue your passion, which led you to computer programming.
Yes, and I think having a brother was, helping out in this process was nice, because while he was in engineering school, I was in high school, and sometimes I could get stuck in my math project, so I had my older brothers come in and helping me, which is great, because what do you do when your brothers and sisters fight all the time, right? But then when you grow up, you help each other, and that's great. Actually, here is my brother and I, 2 years ago, doing a karaoke in vacation, and so this is to show you that we don't only have coding in common.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds like a very good start. So now we know how you came about to enjoy computer science, but what brought you from France here to the United States?
So when I was in engineering school, I had the great opportunity to apply for an exchange student program. So I wanted to do this. I think it was a great way for me to improve my English. But also, I had chosen computer graphics. I was very motivated and fascinated by computer graphics. And during that time, Pixar just produced their first animated movie, which was Toy Story, and I found that amazing. I wanted to actually work for Pixar. So when I looked at the different universities that were offered through the exchange program, in computer science, there was only two of them, two universities in the United States. One was in Memphis and one was in Arizona. So I chose Arizona because two reasons. It was closer to California where Pixar was, and it was a little warmer as well. So that's how I got into United States. I came as an exchange student at ASU.
Yeah, it is a little bit warmer in Arizona.
Much warmer.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's really a very brave experience to put yourself out there and to travel abroad to a country where you don't necessarily have family or friends living out there, and to completely dive into this experience. So you started CS before you started your first job then?
Yes, and I think you brought up the fact that you have to put yourself out there, and for me it was a huge shift. When I came to the United States, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have an apartment. In France, the school system is a little different, even when you're in bachelor or master. You just choose a major, and then in engineering school, your entire schedule is decided for you. So here you go on Monday morning and you'll have this. But when I came here, I learned the entire process, and it was very much different. You had to go and look through the catalog of classes and decide which one you wanted to do. You had to go and convince the teacher that you were okay, that you had the prerequisites for it, even though you didn't study there before. My English was not very proficient at that time, so I had to just do a lot of convincing in August, and just before starting school, and so that was a little bit of a challenge. And then when I joined the classes, like I said, my English was a little broken, and there was some major misunderstanding. So, for example, I didn't know what a due date was, which was mean that I missed my first project. So I come to, so the first project in computer science, 3D graphics, was due on a certain date, and though I happily go to the lab that day, and nobody is around me, and somebody's like, I think you need to be in class right now. So I go to the class, and the teacher says, well, though you give me your disk with your project completed at the end of the class. And I was like, oh my God, what did I miss? So that was my first big shock. And he said, don't worry, just skip to the second project. I also needed to learn C++. I needed to know C++ because all the projects were supposed to be done in C++. I had never done any object-oriented programming, so I had to catch up on that too. So a lot of ramp up, but I think there was a lot of mentorship. I was the only girl in the 3D class, so I needed to measure up. I needed to show that a girl can do it. So I just worked hard, and I had great mentorship. And actually, I had an independent study to do, and Dr. Workwood, I remember, was sponsoring me for an independent study project to do the Trefoil knot. And that was good. I mean, those kind of endorsement can be life-changing.
Wow. Well, so I am assuming that after that you wound up learning what the due date meant, and you were able to turn in the other projects that you needed. And
yes.
What happened after you graduated? Were you able to then go and work at Pixar like you had dreamed of before?
So yeah, so unfortunately not, but new things happened to me. So at the end of the engineering degree in France, you're supposed to do a 3-month internship. And for me, it was easier to find it in California because we had a lot of .com booming, and they were looking for a lot of people. So I did that. I found, I didn't work for Pixar, but I worked for a company called Infolane, which was a web design company. So during the summer, I took my 2 suitcases and I moved to California. And it was great. Also, during that time, I finished my 3-month internship, I graduated, and then I started interviewing. And I had offers in California, but also in Paris. I had tried, to go back to Paris and interview there also to keep my options open. But I had also met at ASU my future husband, so I had to make a decision. Do I go back to France and that's it, or do I stay around? And so history goes that, we stayed around, and 20 years later, I'm still here, and we have 2 beautiful children. I did not work for Pixar, but I did pursue my dream to join a company that will offer me a 3D engineering position, and I work at Invisalign. At the time, it was a tiny company, and I worked on their 3D system to create the treatment plan. And that fits well with my story because my dad was a dentist, so it was kind of my world. So I ended up at least being in the 3D.
Mm. Yeah, so you started delving a little bit into the interests of your brother at first. You also were able to then work in some of the interests that pertain to those of your father as well. So yeah, you got
the whole family happy.
So what happened when you first started looking for work? You found this one small company. At the time, it was called Facebook. What happened there?
So after I stayed at Align for 8 years, and it was a small company, and it grew to a much bigger company. We went IPO. It was great. It was a very nice explosion, and I learned a lot. However, with the IPO came a little bit more regulation. Things were slowing down, a little bit more bureaucracy, and so I was very thirsty of a fast-moving environment. I wanted to get the innovation sparkling again. So I started to look around a little bit, and there was this tiny company, Facebook. I didn't know what it was. I had to go and create an account to see what it was. They just had opened their platform to the outside of the university. Until now, it was only for students. And so a friend of mine was saying, yeah, they're looking for people in IT, and so why don't you look into it? You seem to have the experience. So I went there. And I was fascinated by the fact that they were looking for individual contributors who were go-getters and really had a can-do attitude and will be able to take risks and just do the work. And it was very open-minded. The culture was super open, so I decided to join Facebook.
That's really exciting. So you were there as it was starting to ramp up, and you were able to see it then grow from what it was back then to what it is now.
That's correct, yes.
That's really great. And can you tell us a little bit more about what was so exciting in these first few years when you were there?
So the good thing, this is the team that I was working with, and that was the finance team. The good thing what was really exciting is that everything had to be built. Facebook was running on QuickBooks, which is a financial system, but you can't go IPO on those systems. And so I felt like I already done that for another company, so I could relive my childhood, but this time not making the same mistakes. I had a little bit more experience. And so I felt like I was really contributing. And then the team was awesome. We didn't have cubicles, which was a new way of working at that time. We had open space. I mean, it seems to be very obvious now, but at that time, everybody had cubicles or offices. And that was one of the differences at Facebook. Everybody was on the same floor with open tables. And that really breaks down barriers, hierarchy barriers, and it fosters collaboration. If you had a question, you just go up to the desk, and then we'll go to the whiteboard and start, discussing. And so that was really what was exciting, to move fast, to work hard. And this team is actually a very good also at hanging out during happy hours. So we had great times. I mean, not only in the work ethics, it was awesome, but we went all over the place to train the business, New York, whatnot, and we always party very hard. So the next day we had to be back at 7 in the training room. Our eyes were like that, but we were there, and we were serious, not trying to remember what happened the previous night.
Okay, so that sounds like you guys had a lot of fun, and work hard, play hard, and you guys were able to make that work.
Yes.
And so you talked about how you guys were moving fast. This was, I haven't noted that it's like moving fast and breaking things. That was one of Facebook's lines. Can you give us some examples of what you mean by that?
So one example would be, for me, on day one of the job, I had to interview a new person. So I didn't know the company much, but I needed to know and understand what they were looking for, how, what kind of challenge and what kind of talent they were looking for. So we take risks, you know, we hire the person and then I mean, we interview her first, but so that was, you know, that was welcome servant to the new job. Here, go and interview that new person now. So the other thing, another example was that the sales team were growing very fast and they needed to track their leads and they needed a tool to do that. Excel was not doing it for them anymore. So we quickly built something, we called it Rolodex, and that was great, but it was done by engineers in IT. And it solved the problem at the time, but then as the tool had needed to grow, and more customization will come, and so it was becoming more and more of a burden for the engineering team to support. And this is the entire buy versus build kind of debate that the IT organizations always have. Do you build, usually when you're small, you build your own tools because it's, you know, you can. But then as you grow strategically, you want to release a little bit the engineering power and assets back to the engineering pool and buy an off-the-shelf software and customize it. So that's what we did. We broke Rolodex and we moved on to a Salesforce. We had to do big transitions, but that's what we had to do in order to move on.
Wow. Well, so it sounds like you were kind of really just thrown into the deep end. So you had to like learn on the spot. Every day was a new challenge, and you.
Yes. I mean, you know, every year I had to work with a different business team. So I had to learn the finance world and the facilities world and the legal work also. That was great. I mean, you had to learn all the time, and that was what made the job interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the benefits about working in a startup environment. But Facebook has grown enormously since then. So what was it like in this constant sense of growth as it was expanding so much?
So it was always a challenge of like being able to scale and keep up with the scale. 4 years after I started, everything had multiplied by 10. We had 10 more users. We had 10 times more revenue. We had 10 times more employees. So from an HR perspective also, it was you know, it needed to scale. We had moved offices 4 times. So we started in downtown Palo Alto and moved across different places in Palo Alto. And then we ended up at the new campus here in Menlo Park. So every time we were growing and we had to keep moving. So that last move was actually very interesting for us because we had to work with facilities to make the campus a stellar campus. They invited me to an event that's called the Charrette. And okay, so this is the event that in the old cafeteria. And the Charrette, what it is basically they bring architects together and community members, students, anybody who want to come and participate to innovate. And you get the plans and you get some project and then you just, you know, design what you think this place could look like. And so I was assigned the outskirt of Facebook, that ring that goes around the campus, and to say, okay, what do you want to do? So we came up with the idea of making a concert hall, but it never happened. But I'm still hoping that at some point they'll pick up the idea. But it was great because that day I met a friend of mine and he said, you know, I used to work here on this campus with Microsystem. So if you want, I'll give you a tour. So we went inside the courtyard. And I had the feeling that we were in a ghost town. You could see the trophy behind the glass door. You could see the old computers abandoned. And then he was telling me all those stories. Oh, this is where this happened. And then we had this release, and we had this big project, and it was funded by this company. So a lot of innovation had happened on that campus. And even though it was a little sad that it was quite of dead, it was actually the right spot for Facebook to make it alive again. And I think that is great. And there was so much innovation with the time of Sun Microsystem at that spot that I'm very glad that this campus had another chance. And they actually kept some of the traces of history of the campus. Two examples I can give you. In one of the building up east, they had a glass wall with some engravement that was saying some microsystem and some dates and some project, and they kept that wall. And the other one is you might go in front of it all the time. You know this like sign. Well, if you look in the back of the like sign, you can see that it says Sun Microsystems. They turned the sign away, and so to preserve a little bit the history. So you can go and look at it. It's kind of amazing to see that. So we made this campus great. We were thinking about some kind of a downtown feeling. We got in vendors for facilities. We created wayfinders to kind of find your way through the conference room, so you could tap on the different conference room and see if they were free or not. So it was a great time of innovation again.
Wow. And so with all of this innovation and up and coming activities that you guys had and transitioning into this new space, how was Facebook also growing in the sense of its staff? How were they addressing issues such as diversity amongst the staff members that they had as well?
So I have to say that Facebook was a hardcore male engineering company on day one, and not by choice, but because it was hard for them to find women engineers. It still is, but even at that time it was even harder. And but I also feel that they were always aware of the imbalance, and they were always trying to work on it. And so there was a lot of things that came along, especially when Sheryl Sandberg came on the team much later. She was a big advocate of equality in the workplace. She was pushing for, just simple things like parking for pregnant women next to the building, which for the engineers were like, why? I mean, if they can't walk, then they should not be coming to work. And so, sometimes you just had to, be able to relate. And she was great at explaining that. The other thing she did is that she pushed that men will have as much parental leave as women. So it might be strange, but think about it. If you are a man and you're going to take as much vacation as a woman, if you're a woman, you don't feel as guilty. So, and then, when you hire, it doesn't matter if it's a man and a woman, because they will both take the same time off. And that's really important. Those are little things that are really making a true difference. So she had not written the book, Lenin, at that time, but I think all the ideas that she had and she put in that book, we got to share to have it with her. I mean, she shared it with us internally, and then that was great. So towards the end of my last year, I think at Facebook, I joined a club, a group of women in IT and engineering ops. And we were trying to think about the problems of gender diversity and how to attract other women. How can we engineers at Facebook show what we're doing, how we can share it with other people and motivate them to come. So we also had events where we will go and spray paint our Shiro on the walls. But it will be like inviting Girl Scout to come and visit the campus. It would be about making talk like this one, etc. So this is, the kind of things that happen also at Facebook.
Mm-hmm. It's really great and inspiring to know, that multiple people were also thinking about how they could change and improve the diversity that was existing at Facebook. And I know that a lot of people know Sheryl Sandberg right now for what she had to say in her Lenin book, but I'm curious to know what your advice would be to young women or just women in general that are looking to go into a job in engineering.
So I will say that if you are offered a job, don't accept the first offer. Always counter. Because the men, they do that. So women should do it too. It shows a great straight mind, and you don't feel that they're giving you a favor, that they're making you a favor by giving you a favor. No, they want you. So you're worth it. So you can go for it. I will never accept the first offer. That's my first advice.
I'm thinking about that and I'm laughing because I'm like, well, you accepted my offer to come and speak tonight.
Well, that's different, Britt.
Yes. My question is now, like, what was it like transitioning? What triggered your idea to transition out of life at Facebook?
So at the time, I had worked in 2 startups, and I was fortunate that I had joined 2 startups that were successful, and I had a baby in each startups. So a lot of work is required when you work at startups, and you're empowered. Everybody's working hard, but it can burn you at some point. I felt like, I needed to take a break and breathe a little bit. My children were still small. One of them was transitioning to a new school, and I wanted to make sure that I was available in case she would need it. So, after a time, sometimes I decided that, okay, I'm just going to take a break. So I just did that. I took a break. The first year, I had no agenda. I just wanted to just chill. But I did a lot of things. I went back to the mall. I hadn't visited the mall for a long time. Yes, it's important, This is the event of training. I trained and I ran a half marathon. That was one of my goals. I did it. I went back to France and visited my parents, spent some time with my nephew and nieces, traveled back to India also because that's where my in-laws are. So, just, took a lot of time to do all the things that I had put up on the side.
Mm. Oh, that's really good. So you got to also do and have some time for yourself as well.
Yes.
But at what point, what led you to have this idea to then start Code for Fun?
So during that time of a break, I did also another thing. I volunteered to a lot of different, a lot of different organizations. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do next, but I knew that I wanted to do something. And so I volunteered, and then I had volunteered with Citizen School, which is an organization that places people who work into different after-school program. And I was teaching computer science to kids in East Palo Alto. And I really liked it. So actually in December 2002, we were supposed to go and spend Christmas in India. And so I told my mother-in-law that, well, I'm going to come here for 2 weeks. Just find me something to do. I don't want to be sitting at home and do nothing. Ideally, if you can find me a school where I can teach computer science, I would love that because I've done this here and I think it's, it could be fun. So she was herself a CEO of a nonprofit, so she had good connections, and she found me an NGO school. And so I went to India, and there was about 8 to 9 students waiting for me. And during those 2 weeks, so this is in next to New Delhi, in the outskirts of Gurgaon. This NGO school basically was taking a lot of students who were off track from the public system, and were just trying to get back into the system. So they were about 12 to 16 years old. And every day I will go there, spend 3 hours with them and teach them a program called Bootstrap. Not the Bootstrap that you may know, another Bootstrap. And it teaches algebra and computer science. And they made a video game. So they were very happy. And I also told them that they will need to present. So they were very anxious about that, but they prepared. And you can see at the bottom that parents and staff came in and they presented. The next year I took them again, and then I did the second part of the program, and I got another batch of students for the first part. So that was great. You can see me there teaching with the door open, and it was Diwali time, so there were firecrackers bursting outside, and every time I would jump, and that will make the students laugh. We always also had a monkey coming on that balcony out there. So, there was different challenges. Power outage was one of them, so I kept on telling them, save your project, save your project. But it was great. It was a great time. And actually, one of them, you can see it circle over there, he was the son of, so his mom was a maid and his dad is a taxi driver. Not a very stable family, but he was so motivated. And I know now that he's in an engineering school. He's studying electrical engineering, so I know that he'll be fine. So this is, the kind of thing. And so when you ask me, what inspired you to start Code for Fun, I think that inspired me a hell of a lot. Because I thought that computer science is great, you can get a great job, you can make a good living, but even more powerful, you can give that back to the community and get somebody making their way out of poverty. And for them, it was a great accomplishment. They felt like they were doing something they would have never thought was possible ever in their life. And so just showing them that there's doors that they are able to push was such an inspiration. So when I came back here, I looked at the stats, and I was stunned that not a lot of children were exposed to computer science, and I felt like we needed to do something. And the reasons were, first of all, the cost of those programs. I mean, we have some enrichment programs, but unfortunately, more than half of the population is not able to afford those kind of programs. So we need to make them more affordable. They also the feeling that it's more of a boy activity, and if you're a girl and you like it, well, you're going to end up in a class with boys. So that needed to break, and then also the fact that it's not available in school. In a public school, 1 school out of 10 offers some kind of computer science program. So I think what I was looking for was 2 things. One, you need to start early. Kindergarten or first grade if possible, so that you demystify this complex terminology of computer science. And second thing, I wanted to find an organization that was co-ed, because collaboration is built on, computer science is built on top of collaboration, and boys and girls need to learn that together. So I was looking for an organization, and I did not find one, so I started it. So it's called Code for Fun. And so I think that's the origin of Code for Fun. I think it started in India, and then it exploded here.
Wow, that's really that's really inspiring. So you wanted to also help break down some of these barriers to this computer science education and ensure and normalize this from a very young age, so that it wouldn't be so mystic by the time that they got to an older age, and that they were going to decide to go into this as a career. So what were some of the first steps? So once you had this idea about Code for Fun, what were then the first steps that you came up with to how you were going to go about building this business?
So the first thing was that I wanted to create a sustainable business. And for that, we needed to have a line of revenue. When you start and you're not really well known, being able to live off of grants and volunteers and donations is not very feasible. So it's better if you can actually have one stream of your revenue should be a product that you sell. So we created some enrichment programs first. That also, so not only there was the first goal is to get some revenue, but the second goal was to actually build some curricula and try to test it out there and see how can we balance those curricula across ages, across genders, across level of difficulties for the students. We also offered along some camps for free, so that we were sure that we could test those curricula across different communities. And so that's what we did. But quickly, we knew that we could not expand if we don't go into the school. So if we want to reach out more students, computer science has to be in school. It has to. It's not possible to reach all the children after the class or during camps. So we wanted to do that. I mean, like I said, only 1 school out of 10 offered some kind of computer science. So we decided to, find grants, and for 3 years now, we have been teaching computer science inside schools in some of the poorest area of the Silicon Valley, and this is actually, the children love it, and the teachers love it as well. And more than half of our activity now is teaching inside the school during the school time, and enrichment program is now the second activity for Code for Fun.
So 1 out of 10 schools had computer science education available, or different classes that students had access to. And here you were coming with this new program. Did you find it difficult? What were some of the challenges that you had coming into these schools?
So I think one of the challenge is that it was new. It's new to the education world. The teachers are also not comfortable with the idea because they were not exposed when they were young. The fact that there was no training available for teachers. So even if they want to do it or they think that they want to give the opportunity for their students, there's nothing for them to actually be prepared. And then the lack of funds. I mean, the school district is not, has been suffering. All the school districts have been suffering for years, and we cut down everything. We cut down the art project. We cut down the PE. So coming with a new goal, a new project, a new field is sometimes a little bit overwhelming for school districts.
Okay, so there's a little bit of challenges, not necessarily because they don't want it to go in, but because they don't necessarily have the resources to be able to make that readily available to the large population. Okay. So now that you guys are up and running and have gone through the beginning stages, what are some of the next steps that you're looking for?
So I don't think we're coming to scale. We will never be able to scale if only Code for Fun instructors go and teach computer science in the school. So we want to pass the ball to the teachers. And now our focus this year is really that, training the teachers, offering some workshops so that they can come and learn and do computer science into their own classroom with their own students. So we're offering workshops, like we're having one on Saturday. We had 2 last 2 weeks, and teachers are coming, and the feedback so far has been very good, and we want to expand that.
Okay.
Oh, the good news is that California State has come out with a standard. So now it's going to be mandated that computer science has to be taught into schools. So that's a good news, but that means a lot of the, professional development workshops will be needed and required. So that's our focus.
Wow. And so what are some of the challenges that you see ahead as you're going on to this?
One of the biggest challenges is that teachers need a lot of support. They need our support. The teacher profession has been suffering. I mean, we're hearing on East Virginia that they were on strike for a raise, but this is true all across the country, and it's even more true here because the cost of living is higher. And so teachers have to work a second job, or they have to, they leave the profession to go for a more lucrative career. So there's a lack of teachers, and the other challenge is that, like I said, it could be overwhelming for them to learn computer science. Like, I never could in my life. And then, computer science is not only about coding. There's 5 things in computer science. One of them is coding. The rest is not. So it's just giving them the tools and the confidence and the lesson plans already ready for them to be able to consume. It's to give time to do those things with us in a workshop. It's time for us to go to their classroom and support them, because when comes computers, comes troubleshooting computers, and when you have 32 kids and one of them is not able to log in, then what do? You have to leave everybody and help that kid, right? So so there's a lot of there's a lot of support that is needed. Like I said, there's a lack of funds. So right now, yes, we have the standards coming up, but we don't have the implementation money yet. The state will do that, but maybe in 2-3 years when they have figured out the budget. So what do we do with the students today? I mean, those are the students who really need to get into the funnel. And it's not only to create engineers, it's mostly to teach them something that is necessary, because they are surrounded by technology and they need to know how it works because it's part of their world. It's like common sense, right? So you don't study math to become a mathematician, and you don't study English to become a poet, and or a writer. You just study it because it's part of your life. So same thing with computer science. And so we want to find a way to bridge that, to bridge those 2-3 years where a lot of help is needed, and to train the teachers.
Wow, sounds like a very ambitious project. And so I know this is not necessarily just for one woman alone. I mean, I know that you've helped to found this and everything, but how many members do you have on your team?
So I'm very fortunate to have a team. Some of them are here tonight. Team who are very passionate about what we're doing. I think when you work in an organization, that's the number one criteria, is to be passionate about the cause. And we are about 10 to 15 people. Some of them are full-time, some of them are part-time. And then when comes the summer, because we have a lot of camps in the summer, we triple our number. We hire a lot of summer instructors to come and help us to fulfill those vacant. I'm just wondering if, oh yes, yeah, this is the slide I wanted you to see. So yeah, last year we did 4,700 students. That was more than double in 2016. So we reached to a lot of students. And I think you can't do it alone, you're right. My instructors are amazing, my team is amazing, but also we have amazing partners. We partner with CTER. We trained CTER core member, and they went into their school and taught their students our curriculum. So I think, you know, the good thing about being a nonprofit is that you meet other nonprofits who are as passionate as you, and you know, we are able to accomplish great things.
Wow, that's really incredible. 4,700 students. That's a lot. That's a really incredible story. So I think what we'll do now is maybe some people in the audience have a few questions, I think. So we will actually go ahead and turn it over to you guys, and let us know if you have any questions that you would like to have answered. So actually, I'll go ahead and I'll pass the mic over here.
I'm going to stand up if you guys don't mind.
I think during your talk, you mentioned 5 things that computer science is about. You said one of them is coding and the 4 are not related to coding. Can you explain more about the other 4?
Great questions. I asked that to my staff on last meeting to test them. So number 1 is computing systems. So basically your computers, what makes a computer, the mouse, etc., right? So the hardware. The second thing is the internet and the networks. So the fact that computers don't live alone, they are connected in a network, and you also need to be a citizen on the internet the same way you are a citizen in your community, and it comes with rules and regulations that are not really always defined, so you have to learn to do that. The third one is data and analysis. So data analysis, how do you make sense of data? How do you collect data and answer questions in order to, ask questions to the data so that you can make conclusions. This is big. This is the premise of AI. So, you know, this has become one of the big principles. The third one is algorithm encoding. So that's the one that, will refer as coding. And the last one is impact of computing. So basically, how am I, as a citizen, I create an artifact, a computing artifacts that not only affects me or interests me, but interests other people. How should I change my software so it's more available and more practical for other people? What do I need to think about in terms of the UI? What about the blind people? Can they interact with my interface, etc., etc., etc.? So how do you can impact and change the world using those powerful tools?
Do you have a set curriculum that you teach the teachers? Like, do you teach all elementary teachers Scratch, or do you ever contract people if they say like, oh, I could teach some variation of Python? Like, do you use contractor, or do you just have a set curriculum that you train?
No, we have a set curriculum. We have a set curriculum for our products during the summer, and then we have a set of curriculum that we are borrowing from other organizations. Like, for example, code.org has some curriculum that we reuse because we tested it. Scratch is a tool, but we are building curriculum around that. But there's other organizations who have done that. Even Scratch Education, Google CS, CS First. So we go out there, we're trying to find what has been already done, and if we evaluate them, we match them to the standards, and then we propose them in our workshops. So it's a blend, and some of the times we have to create our own curriculum because we can't find something that is there.
So how do you alter the curriculum for different age ranges?
So I think what appeals to the young age is robots, the robotics, something that moves, something that you can interact with, you can talk to it, it responds to you, you can. So we do that a lot with the little ones. And then we do block programming after that. So that's the code.org, the Scratch, the Snap. There's a lot of different, so code, the Blockly. So there's a lot of application for that. And then after that, we go to what we call scripting programming, where you have to type the code. So that's more middle school and above. There's a great work on pedagogy that you have to think about, because I learned computer science when I was in college. That's very much different than how I'm going to teach it to somebody who is 8 years old. So you have to really put yourself in the head of 8 years old. We had to observe teacher and see how they make a class interesting. So how do you mix something and how do you throw in kinesthetic activities so that you make it very interesting and sometimes recreational. So they don't think that they're actually learning computer science. They're just playing. For them, it's just a game.
Actually, I have two questions. One is how have you found teachers learn this? Like, are they receptive to it? Are their brains like too hardened to learn it? You know how they say with languages, if you wait till after you're 7 years old or something, you can't make the sound. Do you find there's any kind of instance of this with teachers where like once they hit a certain age, they just can't do it? Because I've taught both students and adults, and I find the adults are much slower.
Yes.
Have you had this problem? That's my first question.
Yes, if you look at the teachers and they're becoming our students, the same way you'll be in a classroom full of students, they're all different, right? So there are some students who are going to get it right away and then they fly with it. And some of them, they just need time. So yes, I think the age factor has some to do with it. I found younger students, because they have interacted with technology much more, they're not as slow, but some teachers, for them it was, oh my God, I had to go and learn emails 10 years ago, and now I have this to learn. And so for them, they're still struggling with emails. So yes, in that case, it's a little bit slower. But the good news is that you can teach computer science even without a computer sometimes. You do a lot of activity, we call them unplug. So in those areas, they can follow, and they're much quicker.
Actually, I have two more questions. Another one is, have you had, since they're changing the standards and adding CS to it, have you had governmental organizations, do you consult for any of them, or do you work with government organizations besides them contracting you? They contract you, right?
So nobody's contracting us. We receive grants and we offer our services. And then anybody who wants to come. Not government, but I work with the county of education of the 3 different counties around us, Alameda, Santa Clara, and San Mateo. And they are all very excited of what we are proposing next year. So next year we're proposing a 1-year-long workshop, a 1-year-long professional development for teachers, where we will meet them 5 times during the year, and then they will have assignments, and then they will come back and we'll have a community, we'll exchange our projects. And we will pay them. So that's the one thing, is that we want to make sure that we get a stipend to the teachers, because they will take their own time to come to our training. So they're very excited about this. Now we have to find the funds. But
that's what I was going to ask. Will the school districts pay the teachers, or your organization is going to pay them?
My organization will pay the teacher.
Okay, and my last question. Do you have other partner organizations that are doing the same thing, or do you find you're like the only one around, or have a lot more cropped up that are also trying to get teachers trained?
We are unique in our own ways. There are things that are done similar, but so if I look in the enrichment world, there's a lot of for-profit now that has bloomed since 2014, which is when I founded this. So there's a lot of competition in terms of enrichment programs, but we don't feel like this is a big deal, because really our core activities in schools. Now there are some people, but I think our advantage is that we are local. So there's some big organization, code.org is one of them. They have been very successful, and they are great. I mean, their material is very good, and they have paved the way. They really promoted and pushed this into schools. So, you know, we come, and it's not a foreign concept to actually teach computer science in school. However, they're not local. I mean, they can't provide support in class. We can. So when the teachers are coming and we tell them, you know, we will come for 10 hours in your classroom to help you, they feel like, okay, well, at least, you know, I'll have that. And so that makes a huge difference. So in a way, we are the only one.
I had a quick question, actually. What are some of the biggest differences you've found coming from a startup environment and now working in a nonprofit space? And then a second half of that is one thing I've noticed more and more young folks who are starting nonprofits are starting to adopt some of the same ideas or paradigm as startups, or thinking of themselves as entrepreneurs. I wonder if you've noticed that, if that's especially true here. I've noticed that in New York, but your thoughts on that.
So the main difference is that even though I joined startups, I had a role, a contributor. I was in a team, and when I started Code for Fun, there was just me, right? So I had to learn everything. The first thing is that I actually did not teach anything. I just focused on the paperwork, just filing the 501c3, finding a lawyer, just learning what it takes to incorporate a company, right? And yes, I think when you start a nonprofit or for-profit, you have to think about the business itself, how you're going to sustain it. The main difference is that you're not making all your decisions based on the margin, on the profit, it's based on the cause. So for me, when I look at a camp, and if I see that there's only 4 students in the camp and it will cost the organization that much to run the camp and will barely break even, I will prefer to use the funds to actually throw a free camp so we can impact 30 students. So those are the kind of decisions that we can make based on if you're for-profit and non-profit. But I think as an entrepreneur, you have to think about your nonprofit as a company, because you know you're going to have the same things to pay. You have to pay your employees, you have to pay your insurance, you have to pay your rent. I mean, all of those things come to both. Yes, you might have some donations and other ways to generate revenue, but you know the rest is pretty much the same. You have to pay your taxes. I mean, but not the income taxes, but the payroll taxes. So. You know, you have to learn a lot, and you have to think about it in a sustainable way.
Thank you.
Cool, it works. Firstly, I was like, I don't know whether I should be here because I see a lot of students who are way more younger than me. So I was like, so thank you for arranging this talk firstly, and I don't know if I was supposed to be here, but I'm happy that I am. My question to you is like, as you are planning to scale your business and you want to reach out to more students, have you tapped into the opportunity of like having people volunteer and kind of help you out in this process, or maybe eventually partnering with some corporations and who are very willing to kind of get into the zone and kind of help out, because indeed they also take advantage of it because there are so many technology companies over here. If they have a greater pool of talent, they will be eventually benefiting from it as well.
Very good question. So I think we will not be able to be here if we didn't have volunteers. Our volunteer pool is a huge help. We take volunteers starting at the age of 16. And that gives the opportunity for students, even high school students, to contribute to their community. Anyway, their high school encourages them because they have to log a certain number of community hours. But they also bring a lot of their own ideas. They go to school. They're much younger than us. I'm not that young anymore, and so I think this is great. We also have other people volunteering because they're in between jobs, they want to contribute. The only thing is that you cannot sustain just with volunteers. I think it's very hard because you have a high turnover, so we have to employ staff also. But volunteers is a huge part of our organization. And yes, also coming to the companies, well, when I say that, we will pay the teachers and we'll pay all of that, we need to find the money. And you're right in bringing the fact that companies are trying to hire engineers. And my pitch to them is that if you're having difficulties finding engineers, finding women engineers, guess what? It's not going to get easier because the demand is going to get higher. And so you're going to have more and more vacant positions. And so you have to start to look at the root cause. What's happening? Why do we have so few people? Why do we have 18% only of our bachelors with computer science skills? Why out of those 18%, only 18% are women? When we have 45% of the women earning 53% of the women are earning the bachelor's degrees, and 43 of them are in math and statistics. So the women are there. And if you expose a child to computer science, there's 30% chance that he will choose that as a field. Those are huge potential. We have to harvest that. But it means that we need to teach computer science in the school. So the companies who are out there are trying to find the talent that they need to function should look at helping us to bring those projects that we have and to bring the teachers in our workshops so that they can build the foundation and open up the funnel. So.
Hi.
Hi.
Very impressive about what the work which you guys have been doing. So my question to you is specific to when you mentioned about the age group of 8 to, for the kids of the smaller age group of 8 to 16, you said the programming is more like playing a game for them. So my question is, have you seen any kind of correlation between people who are really good at video games and their programming skills? And if so, should that be encouraged more among kids?
So I think the video game industry is a great influencer of getting into coding. It's the kids love to play games, but even more they like to make games for others to play. And having seen some interfaces and controls, give them ideas, or I want to do this so that my character does that because they have experience in that. So yeah, definitely there's an influence. However, I have to say that if you're trying to think about the root cause of why do we have so many interests for boys to get into computer science and not that many girls, if you read one of the books that was written about that, they were saying that most of the video games were boy-oriented. It was a lot about destruction and fighting and stuff like that. So boys tend to play much more video game, which put the computer more in their bedroom, and there they get, more into technology, etc., etc. So yes, video game is the motivation because it was a source, the source of why there was such a split afterwards. So. We create also, that's one of the camps that we offer is create your games using either Python or Scratch because it's so much fun for the kids to make their own games. Hi.
Hi, thanks for coming here tonight to share your experience with us. I had a couple of questions for you. I was wondering if you guys are reaching out to target lower income or more socioeconomically diverse schools around the Bay Area, maybe like East San Jose or Hayward or elsewhere, or if you're trying to work with maybe high achieving school districts that have computer science teachers and or connecting with the teacher credential schools around the state universities or Stanford, Berkeley, USF, things like that. I know that they target a lot of people to try and get more people into programming, and I was just curious if you guys are already worked with them, since it sounds like they also pay teachers to learn how to do design thinking, learning how to program, and it'd be a great way for you guys to capitalize on all of that.
So there was several questions. Yes, we do work with Title I schools. We've been working with the Ravenswood School District in East Palo Alto and East Menlo Park for 3 years now. We have had some, so the city year partnership that we did, they teach in San Jose in some of the very diverse schools over there and low-income communities. As it comes to Stanford, yes, I've heard them, and I met them last year at Crossroad, which is an event done by Infosys. And I sat down with them, and I took their design thinking workshop, and it was incorporated into already our curriculum. So I was teaching design thinking to 5th graders, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago. So yeah, definitely a lot of people are, working. I mean, we could always use more connections. More school districts, more. So if you have any connections, I'll be happy to get them from you.
What kind of feeling did you have when you first took the leap from looking for a appropriate type of company to work for versus founding your own? What was your the first year like in terms of your mindset?
What was the first year when I started founding my company?
Right. How did you feel about it? How confident were you?
Well, first I was like, damn, I wish I had found another organization because I didn't want to create one. Like, that's a lot of work. I just want to teach, right? So I was really disappointed of not finding something local that I could join. I almost joined Girls Who Code, but there was 2 problems. Is that to my side, the one is that they were focusing only on girls, and I really wanted to co-ed, and it was also much more middle school oriented, and I really wanted to start with the 1st grade. So. So that was a difficult decision. I'm like, okay, should I really do it? Because I'm going back to, I was supposed to take a break and be more with my kids. And here I go, I'm going to create this company, and all the vacation time are going to be busy because we're going to do camps. And after school, we have to run all those programs. So it was a hard decision. But then I felt like, look, if you see a problem and you don't see a solution, then you kind of own up to that problem, right? You found it, so go and fix it. So that was kind of my philosophy. I'm like, okay, I'll try, and there was no pressure. For myself, I told myself, look, we'll just try. It's a nonprofit. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, let's just give it a go. And I was very passionate about it. I really wanted to try to do this because I thought it was so important for the community. It was my time to give back. I felt like I received all of that stuff as a gift. I was fortunate to have a brother who showed me the way. I was fortunate to be able to travel from my tiny village to Arizona and then to California. And I felt like, okay, now it's my time to give the opportunity for others to do something.
That's nice, thank you.
Alrighty. So, Van, you mentioned that you guys have several different volunteers. What do those volunteers do concretely, and also what are some other ways that people would be able to help out?
So we have volunteers who. I'll go from the least amount of time you have to dedicate to volunteering to the most amount. I think if you are a student and you're passionate about what you're studying, pick up the microphone like I did tonight and come in front of our students and share your experience. Why are you at 42? Or why are you in an engineering company, being a woman engineer or a man engineer? What take your word and share that with them. I think role models are very powerful. If you have more time and you want to open a coding club, let's do that, and we will give you all of our lesson plans, and you can create. You can go to library and then open something for free for the students over there. If you want to organize an event on Saturdays, we have a room over there, and you can just do that. There was Jehan who was here. He was there. He created a coding Olympiad for Saturday. It was wonderful. We had a great time. We all, those opportunities are there also. If you want to help, if you don't want to be teaching, but you want to help in the classroom, you can do it during the school time and go into a school, or you can do it during our after-school program. And then if you have connections with companies, then we are looking for money. The program that I talked to you about, that's a budget of $400,000 that we're trying to raise this year. That's a lot of money, and I think we can use all the connections that we can, and we are surrounded with a lot of high-tech companies. So I think it will be possible. But that's another thing. If you don't have time but you have money, then we'll take it.
Well, thank you very much, Servan, for coming out tonight. We're very pleased and very proud to have had you here for our Women's Speaker Series. So this is something that we actually do. That's the first Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. So you are more than welcome to come back. Everybody is welcome. Everybody's supposed to be here at this event. So it's the first Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. And so thank you very much, Servan, for coming here tonight.
Thank you for having me, and thank you guys for coming, and it was great honor.
Well, thank you. And so for those of you who are here tonight, go ahead and feel free. We've got some fresh baked goods and also some, I believe it's lemon infused water. We've got some coffee. So go ahead and feel free to grab some